coyotes. I'm meteorologist John Weatherby.
February is Heart Health Month, and Bob felt it appropriate to play this particular show. Today is February 2nd, so join Bob and wear red to support the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women Day. We know Bob is proudly wearing red today in memory of his beloved mother and in celebration of all the amazing women in our lives. Enjoy the show.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you, and I'm your host, Bob Roth. If you're just tuning in for the very first time, our show is called Health Futures for a reason. It's about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. We've been on the air here for 4.5 years, bringing to you extraordinary content for our listening audience, and today is no different, and I've got a lot of material to get through. I've got an extraordinary guest, and I want to just jump right in. I want to introduce our listening audience to Dr. Martha Gulati. She is the Chief of Cardiology for the University of Arizona. She also is a researcher and an author of a book called Saving Women's Hearts, published by Wiley, and it's available on Amazon.com. Can I call you Martha?
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Martha.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show because we talk about a lot of things here on our show. And really to think about it, in the last 4.5 years, I don't believe I've ever had a cardiologist on. So it's welcome. It's great to have you on because if I'm not mistaken, the number one killer of both men and women is?
It is heart disease.
Heart disease. And, I know that you are a very big advocate of prevention and how do we prevent it. And I want to just jump into it. I mean, you're only here about 1.5 years now.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're head of cardiology for an incredible healthcare organization called Banner Health. And I've had the pleasure of serving on the board for Banner Alzheimer's Foundation, which oversees the Banner Alzheimer's Institute for the last 8 years. And we're doing extraordinary things. But Banner Health has got their name out there worldwide in terms of the stuff that they're doing, not only in their hospitals, but their centers of excellence. And I believe cardiology is one of their centers of excellence.
I certainly hope so. I work at the Banner University Medical Center in Phoenix, and I work in the Heart Institute and direct that as well.
Well, that's incredible. And you published a book called Saving Women's Hearts, and I know that you and I, when I first got a chance to talk, most people think about men and men having heart attacks. And, I think that's kind of the traditional stereotype. But women have them, too. And they have them with almost the same amount of frequency, right?
Well, actually, since 1984, more women in the United States were actually dying from heart disease than men in terms of absolute numbers. And yet, despite that, the recognition wasn't there. When you watch a movie, when you see a picture, we were always depicting a man having a heart attack. And additionally, in a lot of our literature, in a lot of our medical literature specifically, we didn't even study women's hearts. For some reason, we were excluded despite being half the population. And so it kind of gave this, story to our communities at large. And by community, I mean the entire United States, if not the world, that when someone was having a heart attack, if you saw a man clutch at his chest or look uncomfortable, think about their heart. But we didn't translate the same message to women. And so, it's kind of that classic story. A man complains about something related to their chest, and their wife will immediately call 911, get them to the hospital. In contrast, we don't see the same thing happen with women.
We don't see the same thing happen with women for a number of reasons, at least from my seat. First, women are incredibly resilient, and they also ignore a lot of the signs because people depend on them. I mean, especially women that are moms and working moms, they probably ignore a lot of the signs. I would imagine that they do. And are the signs the same in women as they are in men?
So that's a really good question. For about 2/3 of women, they are the same. So we don't want anyone to take the message that if you have crushing chest pain or you feel like an elephant sitting on your chest or a rubber band is going across your chest, chances are you're having a heart attack. And don't ignore them. But there is this issue with about 1/3 of women where they don't have classic symptoms, and they may be more subtle and much more vague, and they can be things like a sort of feeling or sensation of acute fatigue, where yesterday you could climb stairs and now you can't. You can barely get yourself out of bed. Not the fatigue that we all have just from, the crazy lives we lead. But also, people can have no chest pain at all. They can have shortness of breath. They can have neck pain, jaw pain, back pain, or arm pain, and it can be isolated just to that without any chest tightness or chest pressure at all. And for women, sometimes those are their symptoms. So, and then there is people that have even silent heart attacks and don't have symptoms, which obviously this makes it harder for them to recognize. But the fact is women need to know they're at risk for heart disease. Women really understand their risk for breast cancer. And yet it's 8 times more likely that they'll die from heart disease than from breast cancer. And so we need the message to get out to women to understand their husbands are not the only ones at risk, that they're at risk. And then the other thing for women to actually appreciate, or maybe for us as society to appreciate, is that women are busy, and they also, when they put their list of priorities, they're always at the bottom. Everyone else supersedes themselves. Additionally, women tend to outlive their husbands, and often they might be living alone at ages where they can have heart attacks, and whether they have the social support where somebody would help them, or they're even able to call 911.
And, that's something we talk a lot about here on this show, especially people that are 65 and older. Nearly 1/3 of our population lives home alone. And I would imagine when you look at the genders, it's more women than it is men. And as you get to 70 years old, 75 years old, that number increases. And then 85 years old, I hear the numbers like close to 70% of people are living alone. So I think it's really important to know the signs and be able to recognize when things aren't normal. And when things, your body's an incredible machine. It talks to you, right? It tells you when things aren't right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing is, if women know they're at risk for heart disease, they're also more likely to advocate and ask if their heart has been checked out. Because the other problem we see in terms of heart disease is that women will go to an emergency room and not even get their heart worked up. And then they're told everything's fine. They go home and then they die of the heart attack at home. And by empowering women to ask, so I heard that heart disease is the #1 killer, could this discomfort here be because I'm having a heart attack? The minute you say that in the emergency room, believe me, then they will check your heart out. But being empowered to ask those questions and knowing if you're at risk for heart disease at least will begin the conversation.
Well, I'll tell you what, this conversation hits near and dear to me, and it hits home. And you talk about women's hearts and women's health. My mother's no longer with us, and for those listening audience members that have heard this show before, this is really why we created Cypress HomeCare, because we were caregivers for my mom. But the reason why was because she had a massive heart attack back in 1985 and was never quite the same. And for me, that was relatively new, because I never thought of women having heart attacks. And here my mom had a major event happen. And with that, all of our lives changed. She was our North Star. She was our organizer. She facilitated all the get-togethers. And, having that oxygen deprivation that she did have, she had 4 different cardioversions in the hospital and 1 at home where they had to bring her heart back. Really changed her whole personality. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this. And, while she's lived another almost 18 years, it was a very different life that she lived. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. And, I want to pick up in our second segment. It hit near and dear to me a second time. And if you listened to the show last week, I talked about my dad. And on August 6th, he had a heart attack. And by the grace of God, he's still with us, thank God. And he's kicking. But you brought up something about pain, right? Kind of like the precursory signs, if you would. For over a month, he had back pain. And I want to talk a little bit about it because since his event, he has no back pain. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. We're at a break right now. James, thank you for a little Bruce Springsteen taking us out. I've got Dr. Martha Gulati. She's the chief of cardiology at the University of Arizona, and we're talking hearts. We're talking both men and women. We will be right back.
Hey, Phoenix, Larry Kudlow here. Be sure to join me every Saturday at 2 p.m. on the Southwest's longest-running financial talk radio station, the one and only Money Radio. And during the week, don't miss Mastering Money with hosts Steve Jurich and Ken Morgan daily at 8 a.m. right here on Money Radio 1510 a.m. and 105.3 FM.
For podcasts, download the free Mastering Money app for both Apple and Android and visit masteringmoneyradio.com.
Hi, everybody. Bill Tatro here. Being on the radio here in the Valley for over a decade and across the country for over 30 years, so much of my advice was based on the world's economic impact on the markets. The show was called It's All About Money. And since then, I've produced a newsletter that shares those same insights. Not specific advice for a product or service, but rather an economist's viewpoint that might help guide you in your financial choices. Dozens of articles each month are delivered right to you, designed to educate and help you control your economic future. To be informed is the best preparation for the future. I'm back and offering Money Radio listeners the opportunity to receive my newsletter for more than 50% off. That's right. Money Radio listeners can get my newsletter for over half off the monthly price. Go to BillTatro.com/moneyradio to get this exclusive offer. That's less than $10 per month to get peace of mind directly to your inbox. Go to BillTatro.com/moneyradio today.
Selfless service is the guiding principle that drives Army National Guard soldiers to be always ready whenever disaster strikes. They are your next-door neighbors and your colleagues in schools, offices, and factories. To be a Guard soldier is to stand ready to serve at all times for family, for community, and for country. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com or contact an Army National Guard recruiter in your area. Sponsored by the Arizona Army National Guard, aired by the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
A bad cold and flu season is upon us. The main difference between them is the flu brings a fever. Be prepared with the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer, backed by more than 70 clinical studies.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're on segment number 2. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Dr. Martha Gulati. She's the chief of cardiology from the University of Arizona. And we are talking about heart health. And we're talking about some of the signs to be looking for. And at the end of the first segment, we talked about I was sharing with our listening audience about my father who just had a medical event or cardiac event. And, he had some warning signs, Martha, and that was, something that we thought and he thought and his wife thought was spinal stenosis. And he was in absolute misery. I mean, he was in a lot of pain. He was planning on coming down the following week for some treatment. And, I will tell you, after his cardiac event, he doesn't have pain anymore. And I know that you're smiling, and it sounds like you've seen this movie before. You know how it ends.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about heart disease, that the symptoms can be different. There can be the very classic symptoms of, like we were talking about earlier, chest tightness, chest pressure. But there is people that experience back pain, neck pain, jaw pain, arm pain that comes on sometimes with exertion, sometimes early in the morning, just because at night we need less blood flow, and then as we wake up we need more, and so that's the way that your body is experiencing something different. And it's reduced blood flow to the heart can be pronounced in many different ways. And hearing your dad's story is very similar to many of my patients who have been told as they were getting worked up that they might have some spinal stenosis in different areas because they were having neck pain or back pain. And then they were ultimately, for some of them, they were getting worked up for that specific surgery, and they'd get sent to a cardiologist who would ultimately say, well, I don't know anything about your back, but I do know that you have heart disease, so we got to deal with that. We deal with the heart disease. They're like, those symptoms, they're all gone. So, that... It isn't rare for us to hear these stories.
Right. He's convalescing, making a recovery. And Dad, if you're listening, a big shout out to you, Noodles. Make a full recovery. But it's been tough. At 81 and a half years old, he's been dealing with the recovery issue. And I also shared with you at the break, he's got pericarditis, which, for our listening audience and in the layperson's terms, is inflammation of the sac around the heart, and that's been giving him a lot of pain. But his arteries are open, the blood flow is good. He got a good report a couple days ago. So at 81 and a half years old, it's just going to take some time to really bounce back.
Yeah, having pericarditis makes it harder because obviously a lot of the symptoms sometimes can mock like what people have experienced when they've had a heart attack, and it just takes time. And it can happen after a heart attack in many people.
And, I think the thing I understand is because, now that he's got a medicated stent inside of him, he's taking some blood thinners. And I think doctors have to really be conscious about the anti-inflammatories that they give him, because I say you guys, cardiologists don't want the blood to be too thin. You want it to be a little bit viscous, and I think that's the concern, too, is that he could be bleeding.
Yeah, that's a risk always, and we always have to balance. We need the blood to be thin enough and not sticky against those new stent placed, but at the same point, we got to balance that with the risk of bleeding, and so we don't want somebody to, it's one thing if we can't prevent if people hurt themselves and get a cut. We hope that doesn't happen, but just without doing anything, we see sometimes spontaneous bleeding, and that's what we don't want.
Right. And as I said at the first segment, this hits home for me. I lost my mother to coronary disease. At the end, it was her mitral valve kind of blew open, and they weren't able to do anything to help her. Unfortunately, she just wasn't strong enough to have a valve replacement. And with Dad, I think, by the grace of God, he's still with us. But I also think, and this is something I talk about on our show, is innovations in technology. I mean, we have come so far. And, I would imagine, if this had happened, 10 or 20 years ago for my dad, they would have cracked his ribs. They would have probably given bypass. And now to think that they could do that through a cardiac cath and just running, 2 millimeters, 2 centimeters, a tube up in them, and they can see stuff, drop in stents, rotor out stuff, blow up balloons. I mean, it is amazing. It's almost like a party. You can have a clown blowing up balloons. It is amazing.
Well, hopefully no clowns blowing up the balloons, because we still use balloons now when we are displacing stents. But it is amazing. I will say, I think I finished fellowship. Gosh, it might even really be almost 20 years ago. And it's amazing through my training, and even now I continue to learn because our technology has gotten better and better, and the way that we do things has completely changed, and the medications we have gotten better. But, when we think about this is that, like you said, in the past, we would have done open heart surgery just to put in a stent because we didn't have stents. Now that's routine for us. What's changing even more dramatically is when people do have valve problems, like your mother. I mean, valve replacement always, really until about 4 or 5 years ago, involved cracking open your chest. And there were some people we had to deny surgery to because they just wouldn't have been well enough to recover from the open heart surgery. The risk was too high. And we started developing what we called like sort of, for someone who couldn't have surgery, let's see what we can offer them. Well, it's evolved to be so good that we're starting to do it in younger people, not just the people that were high risk for surgery, but we're trying, who wants their chest cracked open if you have that option? So valve replacement has really dramatically changed in these last 5 years, where a lot of people are having valve replacements basically like we do cardiac casts through an artery in the groin.
Wow.
And it's quite remarkable. And people go home in at one time we were keeping them in for about a week. Now they go home in 2 or 3 days. And it's really, really changing the face and the look and the recovery and what we can offer people.
And, I know in valve replacement, you can do mechanical or you can do baboon, pig valves. All that can be done through a cath?
Yeah, I mean, we don't generally use mechanical valves through the new way that we're doing. And we really aren't big fans anymore of mechanical valves just because of the anticoagulation that's needed lifelong. And again, it's not for everyone and it's not for every valve, but I will say that for some of the valves, we are able to do this, and it's quite remarkable.
Science is so amazing, and I miss my mom every day, and I think about how far we've come. And had she had her event 30 years later, I'm not sure she would have made a full recovery, but her quality of life would have been definitely different, thanks to modern medicine.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
We're talking about intervention, and we're talking about science and technology and some of the great things you're doing. But you know what? I want you to share with me and our listening audience, what puts you at risk for heart disease? And I know one of them, I'm sitting here right now. I got a mother and father who have had some heart issues, so I'm definitely predisposed to having genetically heart disease, correct?
Yes. Well, certainly genes, you can't choose your parents, so you just kind of
I love my parents, but you're right.
But the great thing about heart disease is about 80% of it is preventable. And so knowing if you're at risk is the first step to making lifestyle changes that can save your life. We have cardiologists that are plumbers, in my mind, the interventionalist, and they're the ones who treat you when you have heart disease. I like to say my job is that I'm an early interventionalist because I try to prevent you from having heart disease. So knowing if you're at risk is the beginning to reducing your risk.
Well, I want to spend the third and fourth segment of this show really talking about that. And I know that I would imagine that your book and some of the things you advocate is exactly that, because 80% and so much of it we can change through lifestyle. And trust me, I'm married to a wonderful woman. We're celebrating our 28th anniversary, and she tells me that she wants me around a little bit longer. And shout out to you, Susie. I love you, sweetheart. And she's trying to tell me enough bacon. But I really like baking. But, I get it. I get it, especially at almost 55 years old. I mean, you have to take control of the things that you can control.
Exactly.
And the things you can't control are the things that you just talked about, genetically being predisposed. You can't pick your parents, but, 80% of that you can control. It's halftime here at Health Futures. Dr. Martha Gulati, Bob Roth here. You're listening to Health Futures. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Special report, GOP memo released. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee have released a memo that accuses the FBI and the Justice Department of improper monitoring of one-time Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Correspondent Jim Sciutto reports officials had other intelligence in addition to the Steele dossier in order to get permission to conduct surveillance.
The FBI had its own corroborating intelligence to call for this warrant to surveil Carter Page. We also know that the way this process works in the FISA court is that they do not issue warrants based solely or even principally on outside information, that there would need to be intelligence to back up this request, particularly to surveil an American.
Former FBI Director James Comey says the memo is dishonest and misleading, adding that it wrecked the House Intel Committee, destroyed trust with the intelligence community, and exposed the classified investigation of a U.S. citizen. I'm Ann Cates.
Can something that's truly stylish be truly durable? Yes, when it's the Home Depot's exclusive Delta Everly Widespread Bath Faucet in Spot Shield Brushed Nickel. It's at a new lower price of $129. You save $20. Its soft modern design means timeless beauty. Its Spot Shield finish means there are less spots and less cleaning. The exclusive Delta Everly Faucet, now just $129 during the Winter Kitchen and Bath event at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Valid through March 7th while supplies last.
For many businesses, hiring is tough. You want access to highly qualified candidates fast. And you don't want to sign a long-term contract or pay upfront fees. That's why you need Indeed.com, delivering 6 times more hires than any other job site, according to independent research. Indeed is offering new users a $50 credit to give their first job post premium visibility as a sponsored job. Redeem this offer at Indeed.com/credit. That's Indeed.com/credit. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
When it comes to talking about all things relating to money, nobody does it like the Valley leader for 25 years. Tell your friends about us. We're Money Radio at 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
What if I told you there's a wealth management firm that offers a 100% satisfaction guarantee? Think it doesn't exist? Think again.
Hi, I'm Mo Ansari, president of Compact Asset Management. When you start a new relationship with Compact, we'll create your customized investment portfolio and financial plan dedicated to help you reach your goals. Try us out for a year. If you're not happy for any reason, you'll get all of the management and maintenance fee that you paid refunded. This is our 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Dial pound 250 on your cell phone and use the keyword Talk to Mo to find out more. Again, from your cell phone, dial pound 250, keyword Talk to Mo. Satisfaction guarantee doesn't apply to fees and commissions charged by third parties for such things as insurance products or mutual fund redemptions. It also doesn't apply to any market losses which might occur in an account. For additional information regarding this guarantee, please see the disclosure brochure available at the time you enroll or upon request.
Compact Asset Management is a registered investment advisor. Funds custodian, Fidelity Institutional Wealth Services, member FINRA SIPC.
Hi, everybody. Bill Tatro here. You know, being on the radio here in the Valley for over a decade and across the country for over 30 years, so much of my advice was based on the world's economic impact on the markets. The show was called It's All About Money. And since then, I've produced a newsletter that shares those same insights. Not specific advice for a product or service, but rather an economist's viewpoint that might help guide you in your financial choices. Dozens of articles each month are delivered right to you, designed to educate and help you control your economic future. To be informed is the best preparation for the future. I'm back and offering Money Radio listeners the opportunity to receive my newsletter for more than 50% off. That's right. Money Radio listeners can get my newsletter for over half off the monthly price. Go to BillTatro.com/moneyradio to get this exclusive offer. That's less than $10 per month to get peace of mind directly to your inbox. Go to BillTatro.com/moneyradio today.
A bad cold and flu season is upon us. The main difference between them is the flu brings a fever. Be prepared with the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer, backed by more than 70 clinical studies.
I'm Bruce Vail with Your Money Now. Ahead of Sunday's Super Bowl, a new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll depicts a developing problem for the National Football League. Its core audience is losing interest rapidly, a potential threat to the league's dominant role in American culture. The poll shows that fans are following the sport less closely, even in key demographics such as young men that historically propelled the league's growth. At the same time, parents increasingly want their children to turn away from football amid growing concern about player safety. Apple shares are down more than 3%. Sales of the higher-priced iPhone X helped Apple deliver record quarterly revenue and profit, but the company projected weaker-than-expected sales for the current quarter. The broader market is taking a pounding today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is now down 500 points. The Nasdaq is off 102. The S&P 500 is down 46 points. That's your money now.
Prices are for base buildings only and not include windows, doors, or accessories. Stocks are soaring, and construction spending across America has been on the rise. If you've been waiting to build, the time is now. Whether you want to expand your business or you want to build a new garage, call General Steel today. Our metal building kits bolt together quickly and are custom designed for your needs. For example, a 40 by 60 is a great space for an auto shop, RV and camper storage, or 3-car garage. Call General Steel today. It's on sale now for under $25,000. Or imagine a 50 by 100 clear span building for under $40,000. Suitable for the booming warehousing industry, manufacturing facilities, or a church sanctuary. That's 5,000 square feet for $8 or less per foot. Call 866-95-STEEL. That's 866-95-STEEL. With construction in high demand, this special pricing won't last long. Call to lock your building price today at 866-95-STEEL. That's 866-95-STEEL. 866-957-8335.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're on segment number 3. If you're just tuning in, I've got Dr. Martha Gulati. She's the chief of cardiology for the University of Arizona here in the studio with us, and we just spent a good half an hour talking about hearts and heart disease and some of the new innovations and technologies to treat heart disease. And if you missed our first 2 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button. The third button down below will be our radio show. You'll be able to catch those first 2 segments, and you'll be able to catch about 170 or 180 others that we've been bringing to you for the last 100, or should I say 4.5 years. And if you're just tuning in, I want you to meet Dr. Martha Gulati. Martha, thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure.
And we're really talking about some great stuff here, and really the number one killer of both men and women is heart disease. And while we were talking about the disease itself, when we ended our second segment, we were talking about, all right, so what can we do to prevent heart disease? There are things, there are choices we can make lifestyle-wise to do that. And I want to devote these next 2 segments to doing that. And I want to kick it off by telling you or asking you, what are some of the things that we can do? And I want to just give a quick shout-out to my cardiologist, somebody that you know is Dr. Nathan Laufer. And Nathan Laufer has been taking good care of me now for about 14, 15 years, and for the reasons that you and I talked about, the fact that I have family history. I went in to go see him, and fortunately I had a false positive on a stress test, and then I had to do a cardiac cath, and Dr. Laufer did mine, and he said I had the heart of a 20-year-old. So that was good to hear. But I keep seeing him, and just making sure everything's checking out. And I do want to take some time, not right now, but to talk to you about statins and some of the medications that are available. But I do want to talk about prevention, and what are some of the things that you would recommend to people that are listening in today to help prevent?
Sure. So Dr. Laufer is, first of all, an excellent cardiologist and also Canadian like myself. So have a
shout out
special
to him.
place for him too. But I will say that for heart disease, like we were talking about, it is highly preventable. And when I have a lot of patients, they say, well, I'm just going to get heart disease because, in my family it runs. So, that's really interesting. And we didn't have evidence until recently that, does lifestyle trump genetics? But now we do. There's a beautiful study that came out earlier this year where they did do a genetic test that sort of points to the people that are more likely to have heart disease. And it's actually not one gene, it was multiple genes. So it's kind of a panel of genes that we say, if you have all of these or more of these, you're more likely to get heart disease. And in that group, they also then followed them onward and said, for those people who exercised or had a healthier diet, And they were very liberal with what they described as healthy diet or even exercise. It was small amounts compared to people who did nothing. If their blood pressure was controlled, if their cholesterol was controlled, those people did better than the people who did not and still had the bad genetics. So we shouldn't have this fatalistic approach just because, like, you had a mother that had very early heart disease, that you're going to get it. It's inevitable. You may, but you also might be able to prevent it. Additionally, I think with family, we know that maybe some things are similar, but things have changed over time. Sometimes our parents have smoked. We don't. Our parents might have not known the value of exercise. Our younger generation, some of them understand the value. We are becoming a more sedentary population, so we've got to balance that.
Indeed.
But I think that the things I always talk about, and I ask everyone about, I ask them what they eat, and I try to have them describe to me their typical day, which always starts with, but yesterday wasn't a typical day. So unless it was your birthday, it's probably a typical day. I want to hear what you ate and what you drank, because I need to know what you choose to put in your body. I want to know if you exercise, not just yes and no. I want to know what you do, for how long you do it. And I want to know not just exercise, but what you do in your day. Do you walk a certain amount? Do you walk to the bus stop? Do you, are you on your feet all day at your work versus some of us who sit down all day? I want to know if you know your blood pressure, your cholesterol, if you're diabetic or not. And I also want to hear about your family history. And for women, we have some unique risk factors. So for the women, I want to know about their pregnancy. And you might say, well, why on earth? You don't deliver babies. Why do I want to know about your pregnancy that might have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago? But we have a lot more information that pregnancy is that free stress test that nature gives us. And so if I know if you had preeclampsia or any type of hypertension during pregnancy, it seems to be associated with heart disease. Similarly, if you have diabetes during pregnancy, what we call gestational diabetes, that also is a predictor not just of diabetes in the future, but heart disease. If you have a baby before 37 weeks, that again is a sign that you might have earlier heart disease. So those things are things we need to ask about. And then there's other things like if women have gone through menopause or not, if they've taken hormone replacement therapy or not, and even breast cancer for women is important to know because some of the medications we use during breast cancer treatment can accelerate your risk. So that's where it starts. That's where the conversation starts. And then we can make up an individualized plan or a personalized plan for the person sitting in front of us of what can we do to change your risk. Because taking all those factors into account tells me just how at risk are you.
Right. I want to sign up. Seriously, because, I mean, most of us think about going in and just getting evaluated, getting an EKG, getting the doctor to listen to your heart, listen to you breathe. But you're talking about lifestyle. You're talking about what fuel are you putting in your body. I had a concierge doc in my studio about 2.5 years ago, and he said sitting is the new smoking. And my wife, Susie, 12 years ago, had one of the very first treadmill desks. It was handmade by a handy guy, but I've got one in my office. I don't use it enough. But we need to be more active, and active is very important for heart health as well as the fuel you put in your body.
Absolutely. I mean, the heart is a muscle. It needs to be used. It needs to be tested. It needs to be pushed a little. And I agree, smoking has been a big issue in the United States. It's on the decline, which is great, but sitting is the new smoking. We're seeing a younger generation that is so much more sedentary. They watch their videos. They're on their computer a lot of the day. They're indoors more than they were before. And we are worried that this younger generation may be the first generation to not outlive their parents.
Wow. Because
of this sedentary lifestyle. And that's where they've taken away in a lot of schooling, the physical education, and that is really bad. I mean, I don't, whether you like sports or don't like sports, what we need to do is equip our children to be able to do activity for the entirety of their life. And it doesn't have to be a sport. In fact, a sport, it doesn't have to be a team sport is what I meant. Because a team, that means you always need a team to play. And you see kids that played football or soccer and then they become adults and they don't have the team. And so I love when they tell me they used to be in a football team and they're like now 30, 40 pounds overweight because they just can't do what they did all through high school when they were the picture of health. We need to equip our children and everybody actually to be able to do whatever activity it is, to keep moving, to sit less. In our office settings, change them. We could have standing desks just to not sit in a chair, to have treadmill offices are certainly an option, to walk when we're having meetings rather than sitting down around a table, to not bring in the most unhealthy snacks to work. There's a lot of things we can do and be empowered to do and bring to our workplaces. And as we get older, to understand that there's no age that it doesn't matter.
That's so important. And, I want to talk, as you can hear, we got a little Coldplay taking us out. James is picking out some great tunes here today. But I want to talk about the importance of not only diet and exercise, but can you have some of those things? Can you have a bad day? Can you, have that moderation, that balance, if you would? I want to talk to you about that because I still like the bacon. I really like bacon. I don't
have
to.
If I'm going to endorse the bacon.
No, I don't think you are either. And you haven't been talking to Susie, but I have. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're down our third segment. We got one more. Please come back. We'll be right back.
Every morning at 8 a.m., get timely market updates, breaking news on market movers, and strong analysis on financial topics to help you plan, invest, insure, retire, and stay retired. Don't miss Mastering Money every morning at 8 a.m., Monday through Friday. Hear best-selling author and wealth manager Steve Jurich, along with his great lineup of financial experts, CPAs, and attorneys. Mastering Money now at 8, right here on Money Radio, AM 1510 and 105.3 FM. See you there.
The skills you can develop as a soldier in the Army National Guard can give you an edge in the high-tech job market of tomorrow. The Guard offers career training to take advantage of your skills in science, technology, engineering, and math that can help give you a leg up to a high-paying and rewarding STEM profession. Get a head start on your career while earning money to pay for college. Log on to NationalGuard.com to learn about all of the STEM career opportunities in the Army National Guard.
Sponsored by the Arizona Army National Guard. Aired by the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you suffer from back pain, joint pain, arthritis, or other chronic pain, you need to try the water therapy benefits that a Vantage Therapeutic Walk-In Bath provides. Not only does a Vantage Walk-In Bath help get you in and out of the tub safely, it is proven to be beneficial to relieve aches and pains, giving you the relief to enjoy your day. You can enjoy taking your new bath and rejuvenating your body in as little as 7 days. And if you call today and ask for the radio special, we'll give you a $1,500 coupon towards the purchase of a new Vantage Walk-In Bath. Every call in the next 10 minutes will receive a $1,500 coupon towards the purchase of a new Vantage Walk-In Bath. Your aches and pains can be washed away. Call right now for a risk-free quote. 800-551-9230. 800-551-9230. 800-551-9230. That's 800-551-9230.
A bad cold and flu season is upon us. The main difference between them is the flu brings a fever. Be prepared with the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer, backed by more than 70 clinical studies.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're on our fourth segment. And I've got Dr. Martha Gulati. She's the Chief of Cardiology with the University of Arizona here in the studio with me. And we are talking about heart health. And we are talking, the first two segments were really about heart disease and intervention and helping. And now we're talking about how to have a healthy heart. and what are some of the things that you can do. And Martha, you were talking about how diet is a big part of it. It's the fuel that we take in. You also were talking about exercise. And I ended the last segment talking about bacon. And, you know, I know, Susie, you don't want me eating bacon. And, you know, I believe that Martha would probably say the same. But, you know, she's on this kick right now. And, you know, she's feeling a lot of energy. She's feeling really, really good about herself. And she's doing a plant-based diet. And I think that's something you advocate.
Yeah, I mean, I will say with full disclosure, two things. Your wife is right, and your wife is right about the bacon. But I also will say that, you know, I am a vegetarian, but I don't always, it's not that I tell every patient they need to be vegetarian. I do it for different reasons. But I do think that it's important that what you put in your body is something you're aware of its consequences. As cardiologists, most of us will advocate really something called the Mediterranean diet.
Dr. Lawfer does.
Yes, and you can change.
I love the olive oil, though. I mean, it's you can put olive oil on everything.
And olive oil is fine, not again in moderation.
And wine too. That's part of it, right? Those are the two favorite parts. I'm sorry.
So again, everybody loves the wine story. It's funny how nothing else people always can remember about conversation, but if there's a study that comes in the newspaper, like recently, about wine being beneficial,
red wine,
yes,
I love
people think that's the one thing they're like, my doctor says I can drink wine. So I do think that the Mediterranean diet is rich in fruits and vegetables. It's got protein sources that are low in fat. They do, you know, if you do drink wine, you know, again, in moderation. For a woman, that means less than a glass or less a day. And for men, they get more. So they get about 2 glasses or less a day. But I would never tell somebody to start drinking wine just to prevent heart disease. So there's, you know, just like chocolate, you know, there's beneficial properties, but I can't tell people to just eat chocolate all day either.
Right.
I tell people to try to get a colorful diet, a rainbow diet. We're trying to encourage people to get up to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And you'd be amazed at how many patients can only describe to me 1 or 2 vegetables that they get a day in their diet. So people like your wife that are moving to a whole food diet, they are really shifting to get this colorful diet that's rich in vitamins and minerals that we all need for our body, that we're not getting in this highly processed food diet. Bacon is processed food, by the way. But again, that you want to be able to get these things naturally. I don't believe in supplements. I don't believe in putting foreign things into our body if we can get them naturally.
Right. And I've had a orthopedic surgeon here on the show, Dr. David Bailey. He's going to be back on next Friday. And we talk a lot about men's health and we talk about food. And, you know, one of the things that he's an advocate of is organics. He says, you know, the other fruits and vegetables, you really don't know what they're putting on those. And he goes, I advocate organics. And sometimes you really aren't. It says organic, and you're not sure it's organic. He says you buy a tomato, and in 2 days, if it's not starting to ripen and starting to rot, then you know you don't have really an organic tomato. So organics is something I would imagine you advocate as well. And I think you told me you have your own garden, so you're really doing organic stuff.
I do. I will say that organic, if you eat what's on the outside, if you need to save money, the things that you eat everything of, then make sure it's organic. If it's covered and you can't afford to get everything organic, the covered things, at least you're not eating what's exposed to chemicals. But I think one of the greatest things about moving to Phoenix was I realized that there's sunshine almost all the time. And it's been a great place to grow my own fruits and vegetables. So I'm really lucky. I have 4 planting beds. I pretty much have grown all year round. And actually there was a time in the late spring where the only thing I was going to the grocery store was for my mushrooms and ginger, and I really needed nothing because everything else was in my garden. That's
cool.
the easiest and cheapest way to be organic. And I found there's so many resources in the city that help you figure out what grows and how much sun you get and what you need to do and what kind of watering system you need. So it's very satisfying to go out and pick what you're going to eat for dinner and not really have a plan and make it from your garden. And that can be, for some people, that will bring them joy and it's more exciting. What are we going to have tonight? Whatever's in the garden. For other people, that might not be something they enjoy, but food should be about celebrating and enjoying what you put. But you have to learn that even healthy food is happy food.
Right. And, you talked about moving and eating, the fuel you put in your body. So, the fruits and vegetables just don't magically get there. So you're actually out there in the garden. You're actually on your feet. You're digging in the dirt. You're doing all those things, which are heart healthy, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up our show, I did mention this at the second segment. We got about a minute and a half to talk. Statins. All right. So I'm one that has family history. Dr. Laufer, he's got me on a 5 milligram dose. I went off of one for 3.5 years because it was giving me some joint issues. And I'm back on, and my numbers are looking really good. As we wrap it up, I just would love to have you comment on statins.
Sure. Statins get a bad rap in the press because people think that cardiologists must be in the pockets of all these statin makers pushing them. But that isn't true. I think the fact is that statins being available have changed the trajectory of heart disease. As much as the presence of stents and things that have saved lives after heart attacks, additionally, statins have changed and saved lives because we've been able to lower cholesterol and reduce plaque formation in the arteries, which we believe is the origin of cardiovascular disease.
So Dr. Laufer says to me about the statin, and I know that you'll validate it too, and he says, look, my LDLs were, I think, 128. One time they were as high as 136. He said, they're not incredibly high, but I want it down below 99. He said because of the substance of the plaque that may be forming in your artery, if it's higher than 99, it could flake off and then cause problems. And I would imagine you feel the same way.
Yeah, particularly with a family history like your own, you don't want to put someone at a higher risk. And it's an individual discussion. There's a way for us to calculate an individual's risk, and that can help guide the discussion and make it the decision with you and your doctor involved whether a statin's right for you. I don't think it should be in our water supply, and I don't think it's for everyone.
Right.
But I do think that you have to individualize it based on the person in front of you.
Dr. Martha Gulati, thank you for being on the show. We're rich in content, some really good information. I hope our listening audience takes note of some of the things that you've shared, especially about having a healthy heart and living a healthy life. You've been listening to Health Futures. Thank you.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
Bill Gunderson's nationwide Best Stocks radio show is now on Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM. Every morning from 9 to 10 a.m., professional money manager Bill Gunderson will talk about the economy, markets, and the best stocks now. Bill Gunderson is also the inventor of the Best Stocks Now app and the writer of the weekly Best Stocks Now newsletter. If you like to invest in the markets, this is the show for you. You will not want to miss one episode. Visit GundersonCapital.com for more info. That's GundersonCapital.com.
Money Radio 1510
and 105.3 FM.
KFNN Mesa, Phoenix. Well, what a bad way to end the week. The Dow's down
572 points at 25,612. The S&P 500 down 52 at 2768. The Nasdaq down 118 at 7267. Gold down $14 at $13.33 an ounce. Oil down 42 cents at $65.38.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin now.